Hello and welcome to Undrafted, a Dynasty Game Theory podcast brought to you by OTC Fantasy. I am your host, Scott Belanger, a.k.a. Jax Falcone. You can find me on Twitter at Dino Game Theory. This is episode number 250. Let's roll. And episode number 250. I think more people are listening to this than showed up to the White House 250 celebration this weekend.
250 is a lot of episodes, Scott. So it's a privilege to be number 250. So I'm
number 250, quarter centennial. Is that what it is? Anyway, bless me, I did it. Almost 1,000. We're a quarter of the way there. We're going to keep chucking along. Welcome to the program. Welcome to Undrafted. I am so, I was just thinking about it. You, the listener I'm talking to right now, you all are so amazing. I feel the conversation around this show. I feel you guys listening. I feel you guys communicating with each other and with us, and it's just so cool. This plus the underground show we do on this program, on this channel, I just feel the love. So for all y'all listening for the first time, welcome aboard. I always can't believe that there's people listening for the first time, but of course there are. Welcome to the show. But to all y'all who are just here every week, I think about it like we're in June and now July, and nobody really plays fantasy football in June and July. Like even the
Sure.
Dynasty nutheads are like, all for the, rookie draft and then sort of season. But actually y'all are listening and paying attention and along for this crazy ride. So I just was thinking about that, and I just love y'all for it. So thank you so much, the listener. And, I couldn't have a better guest for 250 because it's someone that I have known and been around the Twitter space and the fantasy space for I'm going to ask him when he comes on the air how long I've had him. I mean, I've known him and how long we've been sort of, intersecting in this space. It's been a while. So I'm really excited to bring you someone who has a very unique way of looking at things. Definitely a film-based analysis, but I think way more than a film-based analysis. But Angelo Fantasy, Brandon Angelo, welcome to the program. I'm super excited to finally talk to you on a program. This is really, really cool. Welcome.
Yeah, man, it's been a long time coming. So
yeah,
I'm pumped to be number 250. I'm pumped to be here. So anything you got from any questions that any of your listeners have, just feel free to shoot them my way. But again, man, I'm privileged to be here. So I thank you again.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can find Angelo on Twitter at Angelo_fantasy. I did kind of mention it, but it is at Angelo_fantasy. Go check him out. He's got a ton of followers, and rightfully so. I will say this about you, Angelo, and I keep thinking, I know your first name is Brandon, but
No, go for it.
I've known you as Angelo forever. So
Love
if
it.
I call you either one, but I've always been impressed with the consistency of your content, and I think that's something that I've talked about. We built, the Undroppables, and when I built and had the Undroppables, I was always like, look, content is easy once. Anybody can do, hey, check out this thing I did once. It's really the hardest thing is to be a consistent voice or a consistent, writer. Just anything you're going to do, if you can do it consistently, it's the hardest thing to do. And I'll give you all the props in the world. Your content I can depend upon, and I love it. So I'll give you a lot of credit for that, brother.
I appreciate that, man. I think the number one thing I always stand behind, and my professional life, family life, whatever it is, just authenticity, man. So
yes, sir.
Whatever you can do to be authentic and be you, that's typically always the best choice, 100%.
Yeah, well, whether they like it or not, my listeners and viewers know I am authentic. So
it's important.
Yeah, sometimes to my detriment, but enjoy. Speaking of which, I've got a couple of things I got to mention that are non-football related. Look, I know y'all are waiting for me. It just happened. It's Wednesday night late. Yeah, the first. My stupid Boston Celtics traded the great Jaylen Brown to the Philadelphia Duncan's stupid awful Philadelphia 76ers for literally nothing. For literally nothing. They just gave him to him. So now you guys get to win and we get to watch you win. I am really pissed off about it. I know there's people trying to spin a tale that this was okay for the Celts. It sucks for the Celts, and I'm just going to pour one out for my Boston Celtics and Jaylen Brown. I'll miss you, buddy. So there it is.
Much needed. I'm a Bulls fan like we talked about, so I don't hey man, if I ever get to pour one out, that'd be a good thing because that means we had something good.
Yeah, it's like it's just so bad.
No,
it's so bad. There's a report coming out. I forget who it was. I was just reading, Twitter. They were like, Jaylen did not want out of Boston. I'm like, get the fuck out of here with this reporting. Like, this is just too much. I can't handle that he still wanted to be here and we did this. That part I can't handle. So I'm going to take this in stride. I'm going to continue to be a fan as always, because of course that's what you do. You don't give up, but it really hurts. This was a tough one. I had to talk to my 10-year-old son about it. He's like, we're cooked. He just hates it. And, this is what it is. Man. It's like watching the next generation be hurt by sports. That's what it's all about. Well, we've got a great show, me and you, Angelo, today. We're doing verses, right? Verses is the theme of the show. And I'm going to ask you this person versus that person. And of course, you're going to do more than answer with a one word answer. Red versus blue, blue. Well, all right, next question. It's not going to be like that, but it's going to be basically, a lot of the stuff that you do is prospect evaluation. I think that's where you shine. And we're going to start with some prospect evaluation. This draft class was, I wanted to have you on before the draft, but you know what? I think there's a lot of value right now still to definitely get the class right. I can remember specifically the Puka Nacua class. I was getting Puka Nacua from the draft till the regular season. I was getting Puka, right? I was getting him on rosters and getting him for hardly anything, a future third, when I was like, shit, I think he was better than a fourth round pick. I'll just go ahead and offer a third and get him. And then so forth and so on. Even as the price was rising, I was able to get him until he, of course, now is like top 5 wide receiver. Now it's not a good time to go buy him. But I think there's value pockets like that we can see. I'm going to start you off with a good one. I'm going to start you off with this class sort of starts, maybe at the 2.01. Where we start to see no one has any idea what the hell to do. But I think there was one conversation, and that was the Nick Singleton versus Jonah Coleman. Everything we know now, prospect evaluation, landing spot, etc., draft capital, who you got, Nick Singleton or Jonah Coleman?
I got to say Nick Singleton. I think the biggest thing is looking at and projecting future usage, future potential. And, Jonah Coleman's always going to have RJ Harvey there, right? You're likely going to have, J.K. Dobbins there for at least another season. In Titanland, Tony Pollard's likely gone after this year. Tajay Spears is likely going to test the market. So you're going to have, if Nick Singleton behind the scenes shows a bit, if one of those two guys goes down, he can flash. He has the opportunity to walk in day 1, 2027 training camp as the lead back for the Tennessee Titans. I don't think you can say that as much about Jonah Coleman. That's a lot more up in the air in my opinion. But I would say Nick Singleton too, because the pedigree, if we have the same conversation, 3 years ago, Scott, where it's, man, like where are we taking Nick Singleton? We would probably both say, oh, he's a future first round pick.
For sure.
Like that's kind of where he was valued by NFL circles, by, prospect evaluators, by analytics people. Like he was a surefire first round NFL draft pick, let alone a dynasty draft pick. Yes. So I think that definitely holds water to the potential that he has and carries, because there's a lot there and there's a lot to like with his game. Obviously there's the things that he's still rough around the edges with, but if he can clean some of that up and if he can show the Titans brass and Robert Saleh that he's improved enough to deserve a shot at the lead back for the Titans in 27, I think he could, presumably take off. I mean, he's a pretty cheap buy right now. We talked about Puka Nacua. Obviously, we would hope that would be the ceiling for a guy like Nick Singleton, obviously. But man, I mean, he's a pretty cheap buy and someone that in the, for 27 might have significant opportunity.
Yeah. that's well said. I think, with Nick Singleton, we talk about on this program and certainly on the Underground all the time. One of the things I always mention is if you turn over the card and it's a win, you scratch it off and it's a winner. What did you win, right? And with Nick Singleton, if it's a win, we know that the ceiling is super high and that the win is a potential, real 3-down all-purpose skill set,
Yeah.
explosive, big-time playmaker back, right? That's just what it is if he hits his, ceiling outcome, if you will. So I
Mhm.
think that's part of the reason I tend to agree with you. One of the things I think, that changed not changed, but reinforced my position on Nick Singleton is someone that you do a lot of work with, which is Matt Waldman,
Yeah.
who, a lot of people love him or hate him. I love Waldman. I love thinking of things differently. A lot of people like to pile on. I think that's because he's so prominent, but I love Waldman. I love him as a person too.
Likewise,
So
man. He's the best.
yeah, he's such a good human being. I love talking with him. I love being around him. I love everything about him. All that to say, when I talked to Matt, I was expecting him to actually have some issues with Nick Singleton. And I said, Nick Singleton, he was like, no, man, this is a good back. He's actually, I think they asked him to do some things that, is not in the wheelhouse. They only gave him these opportunities on the outside. And, there was a
Yep.
lot of this stuff that I was like, wait a minute. So you're saying there's actually some things that are there that maybe I, wasn't aware of. What are your thoughts about all that?
No, I think that's correct. And Matt and I actually talked about that a few shows back where it's, the Nittany Lions were a weird offense because they asked Katron Allen to do a lot of the interior work. And then they basically asked Nick Singleton to do all the exterior work, essentially, when you're talking about off tackle work and you're talking about outside zone. But there's not like this, like, synonymous deal with the backs. It's not like Dave Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs in Detroit, where it was
Right.
they can both run the same schemes, different flavor style as runners. But Singleton and Allen were just given completely different plates in terms of
Mm,
what they were doing game to game. And that's not to say it didn't work out for Allen, because it definitely did. It fit his skill set. But Nick Singleton has a pretty diverse profile as a back, and he just wasn't tasked with any diversity. So
yeah.
that's something that, the NFL is a very scheme diverse element to it when you're talking about the run game. So I think that diversity will actually help him propel him forward and potentially give him lead back status here in the near future.
Yeah, that's right. And I think the other thing, generally injured backs who don't perform at the combine are in danger of going undrafted,
Yeah.
right? They're in danger of not being drafted at all. And I don't remember if he was what pick he was. I mean, it was a 5th-round pick, but I don't know which running back he was off the board. But, there was 2 backs in the first 3 rounds. So really all of these backs were 4th and 5th round picks. So he was
Right.
among them and he got drafted, despite all that. So I think that, yeah, they and the sort of the commentary around him by the Titans subsequent to the pick, I think is also a little bit positive. Not that it isn't for Jonah, but I think it's positive enough. And like I said, I think it's just worth I hate that I have to pay the 201, 202 for him, right?
Right.
This is a situation where injury, 5th round pick, da da da. I'd much rather be making the 301. But
Sure.
unfortunately, that's just not this class. He would probably be the 301 in next year's class with this sort of draft capital, or maybe even
Sure.
further down.
Right.
But unfortunately, this class is shitty. It's awful, and so therefore, you had to make that decision early in the 2nd
You
round.
do.
Otherwise, you weren't going to get him.
Yeah.
Before I move on to the next verses, I was kind of curious, just in general, just some of the other backs.
Mhm.
The way I sort of saw this class, and I'll give you my 2 cents, and then you can kind of go from there.
Yeah.
I viewed this as Jeremiah Love as an absolute stud, and he's on a different playing field than all these other backs. Period. End of story. But then I felt like the rest of these backs, there's some value to be had. I'm not exactly sure if any of them are good or not. And I
Yeah.
think that it's possible. Actually, my take would be that it's possible that all of the rest of the backs in this class are worthless and will never amount to anything. I think that's
It's
possible.
very, very true.
Right? It's possible. But I do think there's some things to sort of grab onto. What if there's one guy that you're like, hey man, check it out. I think this is where it might be at. Who's that player?
I would say it's Damon Claiborne out of Wake
Mm,
Forest. I think a couple of things. Matt and I talked about him ad nauseum probably 2 or 3 months ago, like leading up to the draft too, and like he's got a lot of like James Cook to his game at the high end, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, I think that he's probably between a James Cook and Pierre Strong Jr., so you got a pretty
Yeah.
significant, basement level floor. But he does a lot of really good things as a runner from an anticipatory quality standpoint. He's a great accelerator, has more than requisite top end speed. I had him graded pretty high. Like I had him between Casey Conception and Antonio Williams in terms of grade, and those were one's a first round player and one's a day two guy that's pretty sought after. So obviously Claiborne was a pretty late round pick, but I think he might get some early career opportunity. I mean, he's competing for the RB3 job right now in Viking land, but I do think that Aaron Jones hasn't shown a lot into his 30s to lead you to believe that he's going to be a guy that's going to garner a large workload. And Jordan Mason, they brought him in out of San Francisco last year, and he didn't show what you would want him to show either. I think collectively they had less than 3 20-yard runs.
Yeah.
Like collectively, like that's a pretty crazy low number for a starting backfield tandem,
Yes.
let alone one back. So I think they're looking for a spark in that room. And I think Damon Claiborne offers what that is. And he could have a shot to do it if he shows well in the preseason. His price is going to rise drastically. But right now, I mean, I've been getting him in the 4th round of most drafts. So it's like
pretty crazy.
Like he's worth it because his film is really good too. I really enjoyed watching him. He was probably my favorite player to watch in this draft because he does a lot of things that James Cook did well coming out of Georgia, right? And not that he's going to be James Cook, but I think there is a possibility the runway could be pretty significant if Jones goes down and
or when.
No kidding, at 30, whatever.
Angelo,
but yeah.
The Rams did this thing last year, whenever Blake Corum was drafted. When they drafted Blake Corum, they drafted Corum, and I had comped Corum to Kyren Williams.
I did too. Yeah.
They're not exactly the same, but I was like, you know what? He's a little bit Kyren Williams-y. And I had comped Damon Claiborne to Aaron Jones. Not exactly, but, in the same sort of, I thought maybe an Aaron Jones, Bucky Irving type player and Damon Claiborne, a little undersized, but explosive and, kind of does some things that belie his size. And, I was like, this is, that's the sort of the ceiling. I think James Cook is in the same phylum of those players. So I see it.
Agreed.
Pierre Strong was interesting. He was a little bit bigger, but
I like Pierre Strong.
He was so fast. Everybody had
so good.
Yeah, it was so interesting.
College,
yeah. If you run the sim 1,000 times, Pierre Strong is a player, one of them. I'm sure of it.
I agree, 100%.
Yeah. He's a dude in one of them. But I think these running backs, it's when they get a shot. And if we look at this backfield in Minnesota, you see Jordan Mason. All of a sudden now he's a household name. But I can remember when I was calling him a sleeper out of Georgia Tech, and I was like, I think he's pretty good. And I remember Felix turned me on to him, and I was like, this is a player. And so I think he's probably hit his ceiling. He's not more than this. I mean, this is what we thought he would be.
I mean, typically like when you're in a really good offensive environment and you show well, and then you go to a worse offensive environment, you're not going to show better. And that's kind of typically what we see from backs all the time, and Mason included. So I agree with you there.
He's a good player. Like he's a really good. One of the things that you do is you talk about processing, you talk about movement.
Yeah,
he was one of those guys that wasn't necessarily the fastest, most explosive, most eye-popping player, but you were like, you watch him, you're like, dude, this guy's a good football player. That was Jordan Mason. He's still a good football player.
Exactly.
But when you have Jordan Mason was 6th round pick. Aaron Jones was a 5th round pick. Underdrafted, should have been earlier, but nonetheless, 5th round pick. Now, Damon Claiborne's a 6th round pick. I think with the draft capital, is it 6th round pick? Did I get that right?
I believe so.
Whatever, close enough. Look, he's a type of player that he doesn't have to climb over, these big hurdles. He really just has to, pop a little bit, and he can probably get on the field. And it's if not when, or when, not if Aaron Jones gets hurt. So I think you're right. You're right on the money. And on top of all of that, he's very attainable at his cost, right?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing for sure.
it doesn't cost you much to throw him on a roster. You could probably get the Jordan Mason, Aaron Jones, Damon Claiborne whole backfield
Sure,
in
right?
Dynasty very inexpensively, right? You could
Yeah,
go to all three managers and make a trade that makes it happen for you. So I think this is a great call. Certainly in rookie drafts, if you for whatever reason haven't had one yet, I've got a couple left to go. I'm in 23 leagues. I've got like two or
okay.
three left to go. If you're in a startup, I think at startup ADP, he's a great value. So Damon Claiborne for sure. Let's move on to let's stay in the class. You mentioned a player already, and I heard where you kind of put him, and I'm not sure if you had one of the other guys too high or this guy too low,
Sure.
or if you got it right on the money, but you mentioned Casey Concepcion.
Yeah.
For me, look, Casey Concepcion was an interesting look. I think all of this entire class, all these guys got pushed up too high. And I think no different than both of these guys, Omar Cooper and Casey Concepcion.
Yeah.
I am way overweight in Omar Cooper and way underweight in Casey Concepcion in my dynasty portfolio, not because I think Omar Cooper is better than Casey Concepcion, although I think it's possible, but because of their value. But I would ask you straight up, who do you prefer as a player, Omar Cooper or Casey Concepcion?
I'd say Concepcion. I think that one of the bigger reasons is you're going to a really open room in in Cleveland where
Yeah.
right now you look at Todd Monken. That's one thing I like to look at is like
Yeah.
play caller changes. What did he have? Obviously, he had Zay Flowers in past years, and then before that, Jarvis Landry. You look at like the averages of those guys, what they had in the last 4 years of him, calling plays in the NFL, and the leading receivers have had 81 for 1100 with Todd Monken. So he really features one guy, and he's Concepcion is a similar archetype to Zay Flowers. I don't think he's as abrupt as Flowers is, but I think he can change the game in a similar fashion, especially on special teams. That's a really big one. We don't talk about that enough with Concepcion. He's the best returner in this class.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
that's a big part of it. Cooper Jr. I like. I think the difficult part is, God, that offense is not going to be very good. Neither are the Browns, but you have Sadiq you brought in, right, before Cooper Jr., so they prioritize Sadiq. Even with them having Mason Taylor, you have Brees Hall on that offense. You also have Garrett Wilson.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of mouths to feed, but distributing the ball, you only got Geno Smith. Obviously, it's not much better in Cleveland with Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders. But I think the Browns, I project them to play from behind an absolute ton. So with the Myles Garrett trade, like they're going to be in most second halves trailing, right? I think the Jets defensively are going to be a bit better than the Browns. So I think that might keep the script more neutral. They're going to want to pound the ball a bit more than they did last year, especially with the healthier Braylon Allen. That's a big one for them. But yeah, I think Concepcion's going to see a lot of time early. I think he profiles as the number one target in the Todd Monken led system as that move Z. That's important for him. But I think straight up, I would definitely say Concepcion over Cooper.
So here's the thing. If you strip away, you mentioned a lot of ancillary things and not either of the players, which I think is fine, by the way. I'm not picking on you. But at the end of the day, sometimes we've got players that fall into great situations and fail miserably.
We do.
Right? I'm looking at you, N'Keal Harry.
Oh, man, yeah.
Point of the matter is, right?
Former
Tom
Sun
Brady and the whole thing. And what happened is Jacoby Myers was straight up better than him, still is.
Sure.
And worked out, and N'Keal Harry didn't. And I'm not suggesting that either of these guys are either of those two players. I'm just saying, like, sometimes we think one way, the situation, all this, and we forget that. And I think for both these guys, I'm not all in on either guy. I think they're both about similar bets. I love that Casey Concepcion was an early declare and a player who did have that returning chops. And, I think both of them, too, when we talk about Omar Cooper and Casey Concepcion, they both played inside and outside successfully. Yep. Right? Casey Concepcion went from the slot only type of player and then moved outside to show he could do it, right? Once he got to a real offense in college. And I think Omar Cooper went the other way, right? He was playing outside
Yeah,
downfield
then moved in.
and was very successful at doing so early in his career. And then they were like, hey, man, you're so fucking good. And we've got, Surratt. Let's just move you in and give you all the easy stuff. And you break every tackle. So it doesn't really matter if we throw it to you at 5 yards or 20 yards. You're getting 20 anyway. So I like both of them for that reason. I don't think either of them are pigeonholed. I hear a lot of, analysis that calls Omar Cooper a slot only. I'm like, what on earth are you talking about? That in 1 year, the 1 year you're talking about he was, but that's not how his career was. So I think both of them are inside out players. And when we go to New York, yes, there are some things that I don't like, but what about the fact that Sadiq may not be a target earner in his first year because he's a project tight end that may not be able to earn massive playing time. I mean, he's obviously going to get on the field, but I don't know if he's an 80% snap share guy in rookie year.
No, I would. Yeah, that's a great point. And I think, if you kind of look at how the target should shape out for the New York Jets, obviously Garrett Wilson.
One.
The number two, probably Omar Cooper Jr., right? If I was a betting man, I'd probably say Cooper Jr. over who else? Mason Taylor?
Right.
Like, that's the thing is, I mean, that's like, who else is going to, share secondary work in that passing attack? And I think they brought in Omar Cooper Jr. to also play in 12 personnel. Like, that's a big deal where it's, they're going to want to be more ground heavy. Obviously, like I mentioned with Braylon Allen being a bit healthier too, that helps Breece Hall. But I think it's kind of a no-brainer with, if you're talking about, okay, Sadiq, or who am I taking, Sadiq or Cooper Jr.? I think you're absolutely taking Cooper Jr. I mean, there's a good chance Sadiq never works out. And that's, he's not in the best situation. And his year one is likely not to be all that great.
Right.
So I think you're looking at more Cooper Jr. in that regard. And Concepcion he's harder to acquire. You basically have to get the 106, right?
Yeah.
To have a shot at him. But that's a tough thing. Are you going to take 106 and take Concepcion, or are you going to go 108 to 110 and, grab Cooper Jr.?
That's what I've done. I've done the thing where I've traded out of that 106. And look, if someone else wants to take Sadiq and Concepcion or Cooper or whomever, you take whoever you want. But I've been able to slide back from the 106 into the 108 to 111 spots and got Omar Cooper like every time. I've got him as far as I think even the 201 or 112 or something like that. Like, there's been spots where I'm like, all right, fine. You want me to have Cooper again? Click. So I've definitely been happy to do that. And I think at that cost, it's a different bet. It really is. The 106 and the 108, 109, 110, it starts to become a much different bet, because to move from the 106 to the 109 or 110 generally nets you another future second round pick. So, I mean, at the very minimum. So I think, in a lot of ways, I'll take Cooper plus profit over Concepcion. But straight up, I still agree with you with Concepcion, but he does have a teammate, Denzel Boston. I'm going to ask you the verses this way, right after these messages. Welcome back to the program, me and Brandon Angelo. Brandon Angelo, just awesome to have you here, man. I mentioned I was going to ask you about Mr. Denzel Boston, Casey Concepcion's teammate. And I'm going to ask it this way, because this is a little bit of an interesting way to ask the question. Denzel Boston versus Jayden Higgins. Who you got?
Year two or overall? That's a good.
Yep.
Man, I would probably honestly say Jayden Higgins.
I agree. Yeah, I like that.
I think, and it's probably closer than people think, because I do think if Todd Monken sticks around, and he might be the sacrificial lamb, so to speak, right?
Maybe.
Could happen. But if he sticks around, I could definitely see him being the future number 2 target in that offense, the Concepcion 1. I think Jayden Higgins played well enough down the stretch to earn secondary targets, especially now with Christian Kirk leaving and going to San Francisco. Yep. I think you're going to see, Jayden Higgins step into a bigger role. And he had a pretty good rookie year, actually,
he really
statistically, but also, on film, he showed a lot of things that he showed at Iowa State that made him, a higher draft prospect than people thought he was going to be. Yep. But I would definitely say Jayden Higgins.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like Jayden Higgins quite a bit, actually. I think, I think it's like what we've seen from Jayden Higgins as a pro makes me say, okay, he's good enough. He didn't do everything. Like, he didn't get there. It's not like an easy one, but I think he did enough to say, I'd rather take what I saw from Jayden Higgins as to what could or couldn't happen with Denzel Boston. He could completely flop. He could also kind of look, if he shows what Jayden Higgins showed last year on a per route basis and stuff like that, like that'd be a win for
Yeah,
Denzel
that'd be
Boston in year
awesome.
one, right? So it's kind of like, well, I already have that, and I have it in a pretty good offense with a good quarterback. Like, sounds good to me. I mean, I suppose there's a chance that Denzel Boston is the number one in Cleveland. That's, I guess, possible. It's
Yeah,
possible he's the Nico Collins.
yeah, lower probability, but definitely possible for sure.
So I suppose you have a little bit more of a, but you know what? Let's face it, that's also still possible with Jayden Higgins. Not that he outplays Nico, but that he eventually works himself into a sort of a closer to that type of thing role. I remember I comped him to Nico in some ways, coming out. I was like, he's pretty fucking good, this Jayden Higgins. I like him a lot. I'm still in on Jayden Higgins over Nico Collins. I mean, not over Nico Collins, over Denzel Boston. All right, we're gonna stay in the class for a little bit. We've got some more coming. I'm just gonna wear out this class first, and then we're gonna go to some other ones. Okay.
Love it.
So this one has got me thinking a little bit. It's got me thinking, and I think I might have gotten this right first, and then got too afraid to get this right. But I'm just gonna ask: Carson Beck versus Ty Simpson.
I think definitely Ty Simpson. I think you look at, the first round capital. The story behind him being drafted is actually pretty crazy too. Basically, how like he, Les Snead knew his dad, right, and knows his dad, and kind of long story short, like, met with his dad and said, I'm taking your son in the first round. And this is like a while ago, right? Like over a year.
When has nepotism ever failed? I'm sorry.
Right. I know, right? We look at Marvin Harrison Jr. We'll probably talk about him a bit too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the big thing is, I think there's a plan for him, right? There's a plan for Ty Simpson to be a successor for Matthew Stafford.
Yep.
I don't know what the plan is in Arizona, right? Because here goes this. That's probably a bottom 5 team. This is a good enough quarterback class next year to be like, all right, Trinidad Chambliss, let's say, right? You're picking 5th. He's sitting there at 5. Yeah, you pull the trigger, and then he's your future starter, right?
Yeah.
And Carson Beck is kind of SOL. Quarterbacks that aren't drafted day one, the hit rate on those is really low. I didn't like Carson Beck at Miami and or at Georgia as well. So I definitely say Ty Simpson.
It's fair. I guess I was very dubious with Ty Simpson. His profile screams danger. Anytime I look at like the anatomy stuff with these prospects, one of the screaming red flags is college attempts. And other than Cole Payton, who also
Cole Payton.
Other than Cole Payton, he by far in this entire class was the lowest number of college attempts by quite a bit. I kind of have and he's also like the lowest out of any sort of quarterback in the NFL too. Like, there's some quarterbacks who had low college attempts for whatever reason that still made it. But he's less than all them too, like even Josh Allen and stuff like that, who kind of had low attempts because of the offense and things like that. Played in the same offense as Cole Payton, but I think Ty Simpson, that's one thing that scares the bejesus out of me. He also, even given all that, like, he had this one like great season, but his yards per attempt were very, very, very flaccid. I mean, 7.5 yards per attempt, not great. You look at Carson Beck for his career, he's 8.5 versus 7.5, and his best season was 9.5 versus 7.5 for Ty Simpson. His completion percentage for his career, better than Ty Simpson. His best season, better than Ty Simpson. So, like, I'm not saying that it all just goes to, college stats, but they do have something to say about whether or not you were a good player or not. And I think Carson Beck had a lot of metrics that I really like to see as a college player going into the NFL. I think his stupid face, cost him. I've been saying this. I really believe it's true. Like, everybody's human. Guys who pick players are human. And I swear to God, like his mopey face and these highlight games where he fell flat on said face, I think have a lot to do with, these one-off games that he just kind of, just didn't get it done. But he got his team to the freaking national championship. And somehow or another, that was like still everybody kind of just looks past him. I mean, it's just interesting to me. I don't know if he's any good, but right now, it sounds like he's vying for some a starting role, in Arizona.
I think he plays for sure.
Right.
I think he plays maybe 20% of their games this year. I just don't. You kind of have to, because it's like Shedeur Sanders last year in a sense, right? Where it's like we kind of have to play him and Gabriel, because we have to see, in the next regime, whatever. It's not going to be the case in the Cardinal land, but we have to see what we have to see if it's worth investing another first round pick in a quarterback in the near future. So I think there's
weapons there too. Like if he's at all good, like if he's average-ish, like he could be good because they got weapons, bro.
He's going to start a game probably before Simpson will. And so that might matter, might not. I think Simpson has the better infrastructure to learn within. Obviously a lot more winning, and Matt Stafford being your mentor is different than Jacoby Brissett being your mentor in a sense too. Yeah. Learning from him in the film room, all that stuff. But yeah, I think Beck sees the field pretty soon. I just think you kind of have to see what you have. I mean, you have in Jacoby Brissett. He's obviously not the long-term answer in Arizona, so you kind of have to see what you have in Carson Beck. And if you acquire Carson Beck, the best thing you can do is sell when he starts.
Yeah.
Because the likelihood of him actually succeeding into, a future Pro Bowl caliber passer is really low. So it's like last year, I remember when Shedeur Sanders started, right? Oh my gosh. Like everybody was like, I want a piece of Shedeur Sanders. Or some people in my leagues were like, I give you a second for Shedeur Sanders. Well, absolutely. That's perfect. So that's a big part of like the cost of acquisition. Right now, you can get Carson Beck for like a fourth rounder, probably a third rounder in some leagues. If you're non-super flex, you're getting him for
I would certainly be buying for any third or fourth.
If you're getting him for a third round, you might be able to flip him for a second once, LaFleur says, all right, we're naming Carson Beck the starter in week 10 or whatever, 12, which very well might happen.
I think it happens sooner. I just think, at this particular point, unless they're winning, what benefit do they have to play old crusty veterans Brissett and Minshew over a guy who is a black box? Could be a boat. He could be a boat, boat with a super ugly face that everybody wants to punch. But that doesn't mean he can't be good. I just think he's saying all the right things. He's really approaching things with like, first guy in, last guy out type stuff you're hearing out of Arizona. I don't know, man. Stranger things have happened, and the opportunity's right there in front of him. Alan Soslowski was on the pod the other week, and he said that the worst thing that could happen for your Ty Simpson shares is that he sees the field.
It is
somewhat true.
If he's the backup,
by the illusion that he's gonna be good.
If he's the backup, like a near term, that's really bad. Because if he starts any games in the near future, it's not going to end well. And then there's going to be
likely to be bad.
Giant red question mark of, oh my gosh, is this going to be the guy? It's kind of like Malik Willis. And, when he was drafted to Tennessee, obviously different type of capital, but I love Malik Willis as a prospect. I've been a Pro Bowler caliber prospect. I was awesome at Liberty. Needs a lot of seasoning. Like you need to sit for, you need the Jordyn Love treatment basically. Right.
Right.
But like they're like, all right, he's the backup, and then Tannehill went down. You're like, oh my gosh, like he's starting and he's just deer in headlights. Like this guy should not be starting on an NFL field right now.
Correct.
And like it showed. But then you fast forward 2-3 years, you get him in a better system, and Malik Willis has played his way into a big contract, right? So that developmental part of it really matters. So like a player like a Ty Simpson starting now is really bad for his development. Carson Beck, it could be the exact opposite, because if he shows enough, you're like, you know what? we'll give him a shot 1 year, maybe bring in a potential bridge guy if he fails. But with Ty Simpson, if he stinks it up, he's the backup. Let's say if Stafford gets hurt, you have 4 games left, got to win 3 of them, and he doesn't do it. Like then you're questioning that decision for the rest of it, which is tough.
I'm going to give you some credit here. A lot of people took a lot of heat for Malik Willis early on, and even in his last 3 seasons, the final one with, you can't really say the final one with Tennessee because he only threw the ball a few times. But if you look at his, I'm looking at regular and postseason. I don't think did he play in the postseason? No, they didn't make the postseason. That's right. So, but that's right. But his final 2 seasons, I'm looking at his stats. Like his completion percentage was 85% and 74%.
Yeah,
like crazy. His yards per attempt 12 and 10.2. Like 6 touchdowns, no picks. Like really outstanding. 125 quarterback rating and a 145 quarterback rating. So he's basically sitting on a 130 quarterback rating
it's pretty ridiculous. But now he goes to Miami. He's going to be terrible in Miami.
That's the problem.
Like that's kind of the issue. Is like as much as I love Malik Willis, I was wishing that he was actually going to be an Arizona Cardinal.
Me too.
Like I thought they were going to pony up and say, you know what, this would be much better for us in the future. But like I get it with Sullivan going to Miami, and it's that I get the
bro, that would have been the nuts landing.
But like, man, like it's just going to be one of those things where like Miami's not going to win more than like 3 games. Like
it's going to be rough.
Like they don't have anybody on offense that's not Devon Achane. Like it's like your most accomplished receiver is literally Tutu Atwell. Like that is so bad.
So let's talk about that, because the one thing I want to think about with Malik Willis is how do I win the Malik Willis bet? Like, and the thing that's really frustrating is like, I think he might be actually pretty good. Like I was mentioning that the bet on Malik Willis this year was very similar to the bet on Justin Fields last year, which was, hey, athletic quarterback being given a chance as a starter, similar contract, and let's see if he can do it. The difference is he's got nothing. Like, I mean, Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson would be
literally nothing. The only saving grace is like he's improved mightily as a passer. He was always a super outrageous arm talent and athlete.
Yep.
But his timing, anticipation, like tenfold, and decision making. That's the biggest one, right? Like he used to be pretty turnover heavy at Liberty.
Yep.
Like now he's super turnover friendly. Like you're not making those same mistakes. Justin Fields never really. I'm a Bears fan, but like Justin Fields, like the internal clock never came on, and that's never going to happen at this stage, really. So that's the tough part. But yeah, you're right. I mean, with Miami, you're just hoping. You're hoping to whoever you worship that he hangs on, and next year they go get Jeremiah Smith, right? So, like, that's the tough part because they could very well be like, you know what, he didn't show enough. We're drafting Arch, right? Like, and if they have the number 1 pick, like,
they probably
will, right? So it's like
that's what I'm wondering where the win is for Malik. Like, is it on a new team next year? Like, there's so many quarterbacks coming in. That's the thing. Like, I felt like in Arizona there was actually an opportunity for them to win 7-8 games. Maybe more, whatever, but like reasonably 7-8 games as a general idea that they could be good, and that he could play well enough throwing to McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson. Like, wow, all of a sudden now
get Jeremiah Love too, potentially.
Right. So all of a sudden that he could work his way into like, hey man, we're rolling with him next year. We can't get access to one of these dope quarterbacks. So that's what the idea. I just don't see that as a viable opportunity. Like literally you could put Tom Brady or like Josh Allen in Miami. I think they're all failing.
I agree. I don't think it's one of the unique situations offensively, honestly, in the last decade, maybe that you can think of and say, take the best quarterback in the league, whoever you think that is, Josh Allen, plop him into Miami. They don't win more than 8 games. Like they are a 500 below team. Like they are that bad offensively. From the
Right.
offensive line to their playmakers, like their best target is probably Greg Dulcich.
Yeah.
That's really bad. So
Yes.
yeah, I feel bad for Malik Willis. I feel it's good because I'm like, you know what? He deserved to get a contract and a
Yeah.
nice one. But it sucks. And it's like, man, like it'd be nice for him to be tossing the rock to Trey McBride and Michael Wilson and Marvin Harrison Jr. and him than off to Jeremiah Love.
Maybe you should open one up for pour one out for Malik Willis, but
I
to
might
go
have
ahead.
to go upstairs and pour one out from Malik Willis.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
Malik Willis. All right,
yeah, that's tough.
I got another one for you. This one's fantastic. Before we get to actually a name you just mentioned, but I wanted to ask you about the Carnell Tate, Makai Lemon, Jordyn Tyson, and it may be too late for me, but someone else might have
Yeah.
made the same mistake I made, or maybe they played it right. What are your thoughts about these three? Are they equal? What are your thoughts about them just in concert with one another? Versus, what do you got?
I'd say Carnell Tate. I think in like a vacuum, I think the most talented one is definitely Jordyn Tyson. I think he's also the one I worry the most about from, like an anatomical standpoint, right? Him actually holding up and playing, 17, 18 games a year. That's a tough one. I think Carnell Tate, you have no one there, right? This is the only person on that offense that projects to earn a ton of targets is probably Wan'Dale Robinson.
Sure does.
But yeah, I mean, you're walking into a Brian Dable offense that gives the primary receiver 150 plus targets a year. Like what we did with Malik Neighbors, for crying out loud. I don't think Tate is as talented as Neighbors is, but I do think he can earn 80% of Neighbors' targets that he got as a rookie, which would be like 130 targets. It's a lot of opportunities for a rookie. And it's a new system, so I think he can grow, but I think he's polished enough to return value year over year for sure.
Who's your comp for Carnell Tate? Like the type of player that you think
Yeah.
when you were evaluating him, this is the type of player I think he is.
Jordy Nelson came to mind. I think that was the first one. I think the ability to one thing that he doesn't have that Jordy had is Jordy had an extra gear downfield. The one thing that Tate has that Jordy has is the ability to win the ball, track it, and understand the timing element of being a downfield threat. Jordy Nelson was really freaking fast. Tate doesn't have that extra gear, but similar player because they can win everywhere. They can beat you on in breakers. They can win outside the numbers, win the ball in the air. But that was kind of how I saw him. Obviously, Jordan Nelson was tied to the best quarterback of all time for his career, so that definitely helps. You're not Cam Ward's great, but he's not Aaron Rodgers. But yeah, I think that was kind of where I settled on. I think stylistically, maybe a little more of a AJ Green type player, type of winner. But those are two good all pro caliber receivers he could develop into.
When you evaluated him, and you have to sort of, I don't know if you grade or score, whatever, it doesn't really matter.
Sure.
But to the point that you do, did you have him ahead of or behind players like Rome Odunze and Marvin Harrison Jr.?
I had him right in line with Odunze and Harrison Jr. I had Harrison Jr. pretty high. I had some lower scores on Harrison Jr. in a sense of like the after catch work and some of the raw capability as a route runner. Odunze was super polished coming out of college at Washington, right? And I think we saw some of that through the first 5 weeks of the year last year before the foot injury. So right in line with those guys. I don't think there was a large differentiator in score that I had. I think I had it Harrison Jr., Odunze, Tate, like pretty close, same tier. Yeah. But all three were guys I'm like, you know what, these could be wide receiver ones in NFL offense.
And let's just move to Makai Lemon, same thought. Who does he sort of remind you of as a player? Who did you comp him to?
Makai Lemon's a really interesting one to me because I think there's, I think the first one in terms of current player, Parker Washington, makes a lot of sense in a lot of areas. I think Makai Lemon is probably closest, like archetypically, to a Washington. I think there's a more athletic Jarvis Landry type player, right? Where you can earn a ton of targets by just being really hyper efficient on the first two levels and being super combative, and winning with your hands and being physical. But I think for Lemon, it's really how he's utilizing that Philly system, right? We have no idea what Sean Mannion's offense will look like.
True that.
So, is he going to play inside now, right? I mean, Devontae Smith he's going to absolutely light the world on fire this year. And I think I think he's one of the better receivers in the league. But I think it's really who's going to play option 2, right, in that offense and how that's going to shake out and look. But I think with Lemon, like role wise, you're looking, hopefully you're like, oh man, this is Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? And obviously same school. People compared him to him. I mean, similar stylistically as a player. I think the polish and natural intuition St. Brown has to play in the middle of the field is just so otherworldly good that it's hard to compare any player to him just because, the innate between the ears stuff is just freaky good with St. Brown. Lemons is good, but I don't think anyone's is as good as St. Brown in that regard. I mean, him and Puka Nacua are probably the best middle of the field receivers I've seen in some time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think St. Brown is in that wheelhouse of Lemon of like, hey, maybe, but like role wise, you're tied to Jared Goff too, who's
Lemon is a bit more dogged after the catch, though. Like he's
an absolute animal after the catch,
right? And so I wonder, look. Here's the thing: every time I go to we love Marvin Harrison Jr. Our score, our OTC wide receiver model score, loved Marvin Harrison Jr. We had Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors with the same score, and we had Malik Neighbors ahead because of utility and the way that he would most likely be deployed was that we felt like Marvin Harrison Jr. is playing a role in the NFL that, while is very valuable to NFL teams and the way that you win NFL football games, having an outside player who can go out there and win, draw coverage, line up against other teams, number one cornerbacks, all these things, it isn't necessarily best for us in scoring fantasy points sometimes. And that the player more like Malik Neighbors, who's going to play all over the field, be good after the catch, these are the players that tend to be the players that we get excited about in fantasy.
Right.
CeeDee Lambs and players that, CeeDee Lamb played a lot in the slot and could win after the catch, right? So when I see this sort of slot player, look, when we talk about late round slots, that's different than first round slots. That's JSN territory.
Yeah.
That's CeeDee Lamb territory. These are the guys that have been relegated to the slot. JSN is the number one player in the, I've said this time and time again, but like Cooper Kupp's Triple Crown came from the slot. A lot of what you're talking about with Puka Nacua being as good as he is comes from the middle of the field. Now, he doesn't play exactly slot just because they play a lot of multi-tight end, but he's kind of like a slot. I mean, he doesn't just line up outside and try and win with nines and posts and dig. That's not what he runs. He's running a lot of sort of unders and, just all these types of, routes that get him the ball early, let him make some plays, let him headbutt someone out of the way, Puka,
sure.
But right, just be crazy out there and go get some yards. And, JSN wins in a slightly different way. I understand that Amon-Ra wins in a slightly different way. But when we look at all these players, they do share a little bit more likedness with Lemon than Tate. Tate shares more likedness to Odunze, Marvin Harrison, who have disappointed over the years. What do you think about this as a sheer fantasy take, not as an NFL take?
Yeah, I think it definitely holds water because you look at even like Cooper Kupp, like statistically, like when I went back and looked after we talked a bit earlier, like I had his performance caliber, like the guys I think he's going to perform between Cooper Kupp and Khalil Shakir. So if he's between that, you're talking about a 1,200 plus yard receiver most years, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Cooper Kupp had almost 2,000 yards, right, in a single season. So you're absolutely right when it's like you're taking essentially the cornerstone of an offense and you're moving him around the different places and just asking him, okay, you're going to be the guy who's getting 35+% of our offensive share here.
Yeah.
Like you're getting a ton of work. everywhere on the field. We are making you the number one read on a large bevy of our targets here. That is what JSN, Cooper Kupp, Amon-Ra St. Brown have in common. It's really how they move around the offense. And that's the difference between, your Marvin Harrison Jr., your Roma Dunze. You
Yeah.
have to win outside, and then you earn that inside work. It's like that outside in
Right.
versus inside out. It's kind of that weird
Yep.
that happens in the NFL. And I think with Tate, it's going to be interesting because he's a different style than Diggs, in different style than Neighbors,
Yes.
with who Dabble's used to. So it'll be interesting to see how he moves Tate inside, because Tate didn't play inside at Ohio State,
Mm-mm.
right? So we're
Right.
looking at a guy who can do it, but is he going to be tasked with that in year one? Or are we going to see Wan'Dale Robinson get a large share of those targets again? And Wan'Dale Robinson wide receiver 2 last year. Like, he's not a bad player. So is he going to be tasked with a lot of that middle of the field work? Is he going to be tasked with a lot of the slot work in 11? And
Yeah.
that's going to be an interesting part of it too, because Robinson's so good from the slot that
That's right.
what are you going to do with Tate? How are you going to get him open? Like, that's the
Right.
thing is, Malik Neighbors, you can move him around the formation and get him open. He's going to create yards, right, after the
Yes.
catch, right?
Yes.
Same thing with, your Amon-Ra St. Brown, not to the same degree, but he's going to create
No.
yards. Cooper
Yes.
Kupp, hitting yards, magician, right? And
Yep.
so that's kind of the stuff where it's a little bit more difficult, a little trickier to project. Tate, I can see where you're coming from with that,
Yeah.
because
And,
it's not the
and like
same.
we talk about the queen chess piece, and the queen chess piece on the offense is the player that it plays the slot in 3 wide receiver sets, but does not come off the field in 2 wide receiver
Right.
sets. It's not like I want Jayden Reed for Makai Lemon. That would be an L if he's Jayden Reed, where it's like, yeah, he plays slot and comes off the field in two wide receiver sets. That's an L. We saw a little bit of that with JSN and with CeeDee Lamb in their first years as NFL players, where CeeDee Lamb was playing alongside Michael Gallup
Mhm.
and Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
And a lot of people thought, hey, he's never going to be much more than a slot receiver. And I said, be careful. This is a first round wide receiver. They just entered him into the league through the slot. And the same thing with JSN, who entered the league alongside DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. I'm not saying that they're exactly the same as Amari and Gallup. I'm just saying they played the same damn positions, Z and X, and he came in through the slot, and then now he's the queen chess piece. I see something very similar for Makai Lemon. I think he's a hell of a football player too. Like, I've never heard anybody say, yeah, but he's just not good. Like, that's not been the criticism. The criticism is, well, he's slot only. It's like, okay, I like that. I mean, I don't like that again from a 5th round pick, but I do like it for a 1st round pick.
Right.
And yeah, I'm Makai Lemon over Carnell Tate straight up in fantasy. Again, if we're evaluating for an NFL team, it's a completely different conversation, obviously, because I'm going to say, yeah, Carnell Tate can do things that Makai Lemon can't do. You can't line up Makai Lemon on the outside and let him just stack receiver, go deep. It's a different skill set. I get that. I fully understand that, but I don't really give a shit. I'm here to win fantasy football games, right? I'm not here to, be your, offensive coordinator. That's not what I'm here to do. So I think for those reasons, I have Makai Lemon over both Tyson and Tate.
Yeah. It's funny because I'm looking at my film grades right now. I have Lemon at 93, Tate at 91.86, and Jordyn Tyson 89.62. So all same tier for me. I mean, all profiles,
Really good, right?
potentially cornerstones of an organization, like high impact contributors immediately. But I gave Lemon such a high grade because he's someone you can run your offense through immediately. Like, he can be the engine that makes your offense go, because you can give him the easy and dirty work. The
Yeah.
over the middle stuff, the timing and the element of that piece of it, he can do really well. You don't have to
Yes.
teach him that. And that's the difference between him both and Tate and Tyson. Both those
Yeah.
guys. It's like that piece of it, like Lemon is far and away in the short to intermediate areas the better archetype in terms of the Cooper Kupp, St. Brown, Khalil Shakir at the lower realm, but
Yeah.
really heck of a player for sure.
I'm going to give you two more names, and we're going to do another versus.
Cool.
And this versus is the same archetype. Did I just say archetyped? That's not correct. I know how to spell it, folks. I said it wrong. It's late, and I'm still getting over Jaylen Brown being traded. But I will say, what about Luther Burden versus Emeka Egbuka going forward?
I had Egbuka ranked really high.
Me too.
And it's just tough because I don't see. I got to say Egbuka. And I think it's close. I think as a pure talent, it's Burden. But I think it's going to be easier for the Bucks to be like, this is our 140 target guy, right? The opportunities are he's probably going to get 20% more targets at least than Burden does this year. Just because the Bears offensively, I mean, you got Loveland and Adunze, like you have two really good players. And the Bucks, like Egbuka is their best receiver, right? He's probably their best offensive player right now. So your offense is likely going to flow through him, his skill set, what he does well. And I think that's an important item to look at. Is it's going to flow through him. I think Burden gets more of the work this year with DJ Moore being traded to Buffalo.
For sure.
I think that's a big part of it. I just think Ben Johnson's offense too, like, oh my gosh, it can go
so good
week to week, man. It can go so many different ways. Like there might be games where Burden goes 3 for 30, but also games he goes 6 for 120 and 2, right? I mean, that's just going to be how it goes. But Emeka Egbuka is going to be probably, if he's on the field, 8 for 60 is going to be like your bad week, right? And I think the floor is higher with Egbuka. I think the ceiling is probably higher with Burden because the Bears are a much more explosive offense. I never thought that phrase would roll off my tongue, but
here we are.
They're much more explosive offense than the Bucks are, right? They have better offensive line, better playmakers, better coaching.
We're there.
So I know it feels
it's
good.
time. It's time. It's time to understand and admit and just understand that the Chicago Bears are honestly right now my favorite offense to target in every format right now. And that's going to lead me to my next question, which is Trey McBride versus Colston Loveland in Dynasty. Who you got?
I got to say Loveland because the offense is, I mean, the offense is going to score so much more. So when that happens, a lot of times with tight ends in particular, like you're going to want to be closer to the end zone, right? Like I love Loveland, I love McBride, but like Loveland's not going to be ripping off like 65 yarders like Burden is, right? Like,
well, maybe, but right.
I absolutely love it, but like you're gonna like points per game and projected like red zone trips per game matter more for tight ends than they do for receivers. And
for sure.
In that case, the Arizona Cardinals are likely going to be a bottom third offense. The Bears are going to be probably a top 5 offense.
I think so.
So
yeah. And if they're not a top 5 offense, on top of it, they're going to be a top 5 condensed targeted, target tree, right? In other words, it's Burden, Loveland, and Odunze. Period. That's like what we're doing here. Like
for sure.
My hot take. I don't know how hot it is, but I think that Colston Loveland has as much of an opportunity to be the tight end 1 this year as any other player in the NFL. I'm talking Bowers, everybody. He has tight end 1 overall upside for sure. It is absolutely Colston Loveland right now, who's like 4 full years, like maybe even almost 5 years younger than Trey McBride. Colston Loveland, look, you could almost tell me he's the tight end 1 overall over Bowers, and I would not be like, you're crazy. This could be now. He hasn't done it, so it's a little bit of a projection here. So I'm happy to, of course, just get him where I can get him. I'm not necessarily having to pay the tight end 1 overall price, but I think that there's so much room for him to just explode that's also in Dynasty something I'm looking at is, hey, I want to go ahead and get the player that could just become a first round overall pick.
The big thing too, we kind of go back to it. It's
offensive projection, right?
Yes.
It's really the way I look at it, it's the Bears versus the Raiders versus the Cardinals. And like the Raiders and Cardinals are gonna be both bottom quarter offenses, probably.
Yes.
Maybe in the bottom 10% offensively. When we talk about points per game, trips to the red zone, like offensive efficiency in general is going to be way worse than the Chicago Bears. So that's a huge deal.
Yes.
And while I think McBride and Bowers might out target Loveland, I think the quality of those targets is going to be worse, if that makes sense.
It does. I'll give you one more. You're going to love this one. You can steal this one. Hold on. I've got it right here. What I had looked at last year was if you looked at the NFL regular season and postseason combined, so you just sort of add the postseason to everything. Now, this is still a per route number. So this is not necessarily, we're not looking at raw stats. So nothing gets skewed because it's, oh, well, they played 2 or 3 more games or whatever. I'm just taking all games played last year. Let me get this right to make sure I got you. Trey McBride, who had a monster season, right? Had almost 1,300 yards, right? In his monster season, he had 1.78 yards per route run. Colston Loveland, 1.97. Literally, Colston Loveland was more efficient on a per route basis than Trey McBride. So, I mean, not to say that that's the end all be all, but I think in a lot of ways we're like, we were waiting for, Colston Loveland to sort of show himself. Also, on top of that, if you look at just, raw targets, I mean, he was basically, again, postseason, he was 4th in total targets. Like he really saw 106 total targets and was just an absolute stud, in so many different ways. He just showed himself so well. And a lot of that was toward the end of the year. He just got better and better. And I think when you see that from Colston Loveland, who's more and more involved, you see DJ Moore's exit. I just think Colston Loveland, provided he stays healthy and everything kind of just goes as a sort of average. I mean, you don't even need him to really hit his ceiling outcome. I still think he's an absolute home run at cost in every single format. I'm banging the Colston Loveland drum.
No, I am
just
too. I mean, I've said it. I'm a Bears fan. Like
yeah.
I live in Chicago, so my goodness, I think the biggest thing is who's the biggest mismatch on that offense.
It's
They have
Colston
3
Loveland.
really good players, and it's definitely
Yes.
Loveland, right? He's too big for your nickel corners to deal with, and in 11, he's a tough when safeties are dropping down trying to cover him. He's too quick for backers, so it's like,
Yeah.
how do you're going into a game plan every week, and besides stopping Caleb Williams in that run game, you're going to go, how do we slow down Colston Loveland?
Yep.
It's very difficult to find a non primary outside corner that can match up with him, right?
Right.
So you're gonna have to get really creative defensively on how you stop him. And I don't think a lot of defenses in the NFL have the infrastructure to keep up with him game to game with how Ben Johnson is going to scheme him open, especially in the low red zone where he's gonna.
Yep.
I think he could score you 12 touchdowns. Like he might have a monster TD year.
Yep, absolutely. So, all right, I'm going to get you out on this one. I know it's late.
No,
in Chicago.
We're good.
I'm going to get you out on this one. This is a good one. So, first of all, I want you to tell everybody listening, all the people listening, where they can find your work, what you've been working on, what you're proud of, and just say a quick hello before we get to the end of the show.
Oh, I love it. No, I appreciate it. You can find all my work on X at Angelo_fantasy. And I have a website, angeloanalysis.com. It has all my work on there. Essentially what I do is I break down a lot of the film and then give my dynasty spin on it of, this year I did essentially a small book, you would say, that was my draft guide, different chapters. And I like to add to it through draft season. I typically stop around this time because I don't like regurgitating content. There's not much intel. As we kind of get through later July, that's when I'm going to be all right, this is what I'm seeing in training camp. I like to keep my ear to the ground a lot of times, especially with beat reporters and what they're saying, and try to really follow all 32 and be hey, these are this is what we're seeing from each training camp, where guys are lining up, what reporters are saying, this guy versus this guy. And that's kind of what to expect from me and my content. And I think the biggest thing, you mentioned something that's great, is like what you're proud of, especially when there's a lot of people who create content. And we talked about it a bit. It's just the consistency, right? Like for me, I'm just going to be my authentic self, provide something different. I love just having a little website and people click and subscribe, and I get a ton of emails and DMs and just chop it up. Like I love to talk ball. I'm a big fantasy football player myself. Like I played in a lot of dynasty leagues, and all that stuff's awesome. So if anyone ever wants to just has a question, or like just wants to say hey, like I'm all for it. Like it's such a fun space to be a part of, and this is my 6th, 7th year maybe.
Yeah.
And it's been a lot of fun to, kind of go back to the days where you and I talked about. I remember the first debate. It was Dave Montgomery versus Miles Sanders.
You win.
And I apparently do. He's still kicking.
Won it hands down. And, it's funny because those, I can remember those, and we did that with love and courage, right? We weren't, you're an idiot. It was really fun, right? We would just go back and forth.
I remember. It was cool.
I love it because I learned from those moments, right? I learned what we should be looking at for running backs. May have been not what I was thinking we should be looking at. And everything changes, and you just try and get better and better. And that's what I love about you and many others like you, that we can have those open conversations without, are you crazy? Like, I'm going to call you a name because you like one running back better than the other, or your process is different than mine. Like, that's insanity to me. So for me, I loved when we were able to get to that point, and that's what's great. I love it. I will say this one thing, you'll appreciate this. So, early on in like one of my first pods, I remember saying this, and like the only reason we're here is because we fucking love football. That's it. Like, this is a passion. Like, I'm not here to like, I'm not a content creator. I love fucking football. I love talking about it. I couldn't talk. There's times I'm in my car before I did this, and I'd be listening to shows, and I'd be like saying shit out loud, like, back to the people doing the radio show or the podcast, because I was like, oh, I want to talk about it. And I think that's so much fun. I'm sure there's people who listen to this show who feel the same way. I always say a good show is when you want to hop in the damn conversation yourself. And shut the hell up, Jax. You don't know what you're talking about. Bah, 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 bah. And it's so much fun. I love this sport. I love playing it. I love watching it. I love playing Madden. I love fantasy. I love everything about football. It's just a fucking great sport. And I love that. That's where it comes from. And that's where your passion comes from, the same thing. And that's when it's just, you can just tell people who are real about this sport. And there's some people out there now, God bless them, but that are just out there like literally clickbait jerk offs. I mean, it is so embarrassing for me to watch them. I don't even engage. I can't even do it. It's like, it's so cringe from my perspective to be doing what they do, but God bless them. That's what they want to do, but not where I come from. And I know not where you come from,
Agreed. Love that.
Yeah. It's the love of the game. All right. Here's your opportunity. A Patriots fan right here. You get to dunk on me. The best verses that we could have. We'll finish on the best one. Caleb Williams versus Drake Maye, and for fun, versus Jayden Daniels. All three of them drafted in the same class, drafted 1, 2, 3. Everybody went back and forth. We all thought we had it figured out. We all thought it was Jayden. Then now it's Drake. Now, maybe it's Caleb. Who knows how you got it? Who's the man of those three? The king of those three?
I'll go back to before they were drafted. And like this is on my site so people can fact check it. Caleb Williams was always my number one quarterback in that class. When you look at what Caleb Williams has done, especially in big moments against really good defenses, like he showed up and then some.
Yep.
I think with Drake Maye, there's a part of the big game, high pressure as a pocket passer that hasn't clicked yet.
Agree.
And that's the biggest thing is in those big moments, Caleb Williams is shown to be a top 3 quarterback in that regard. And Drake Maye, it's not there yet. Jayden Daniels, I think the durability is going to be a long-term issue. So like for me, it's Caleb Williams and then Drake Maye. I think also too, Ben Johnson might be the best play caller in football right now.
Yeah.
That is a
Fair.
humongous advantage game to game, like schematically too. And being able to grow organically with one coach. Like Ben Johnson's going to be in Chicago until they ride him on
Yeah.
down, right?
Yeah. Right.
So like
Till someone makes a
you're
mistake.
going to get to
Right.
obtain a level of mastery in a system, which is so incredibly important at the quarterback
Yes.
position and being a young quarterback at that. Drake Maye, it's a little bit different where it's like, yeah, you're tied, but like it's not the head coach. It's a little bit different too schematically where I don't like a lot of what they do offensively with Drake Maye. I think they're limiting him a bit, and that could also be the personnel. I don't think they had the best
Right.
receiver
I
room
think
last
so.
year.
Yep.
But I also think, the difference between what Drake Maye has to work with and Caleb Williams is vast. Like Loveland, Bird, and Adunze, like is a pretty
Very good.
big difference in the offensive line. I also don't think AJ Brown is going to be the same AJ Brown. And so that's the
I
big
hope so.
one. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the
Yeah.
tough thing is like you're
Yeah.
you're going to be force feeding some targets to a gonna be 30-year-old receiver on the back quarter of his career, and is one that's already kind of shown to be regressing in some stages. So that's tough because like that's where a lot of his targets are going to go. I wish they would have given Kyle Williams a bit more of a runway and opportunity. I think Romeo Dubs will be a good steady piece
Yeah.
for him, and I think he's a good player on the outside. And the Mario Douglas is whatever, he's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think really Caleb Williams is tied to one of the best coaches in the NFL and one of the best play callers and offensive orchestrators, and that's a really big advantage there.
Yeah.
Jayden Daniels is. It's going to be interesting to see. David Blau is going to help a lot. I think that offense is going to be able to go a bit more than it has. It's just really, your infrastructure's not great. You don't have
Not great.
a great running game. Your best playmaker is a 2-year-old Terry McLaurin.
Right.
Like Antonio Williams, I think is going to be a great piece, but like, are they going to let take the
He's not
training?
moving the needle, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
You going to take the
I
training
think
off him?
I think you're right. I think, by the way, Terry McLaurin's gonna have a big season this year. I love Terry McLaurin and Mike
Oh, for
Evans
sure.
both
There's no
this
one
year.
else there.
No, but are that was a lot of great analysis, but aren't you worried about the fact that he paints his fingernails? I mean, isn't that the biggest problem with him?
It's funny. People were talking about that a lot, like when
what is wrong with people?
That was the thing, and I'm like, bro, I'll be honest, I'm a Bears fan, man. I've seen a lot of bad. Like you could wear pink face paint, and if you throw 4,000 yards and be happy,
right. Right. It's been 50 years since they've had a quarterback this good. And people are worried about. Yeah, people are stupid, but I think that's right. I'm not terribly against it. I have been ahead of market on Caleb this sort of offseason. I've had him as my quarterback 3 in Dynasty, behind Drake Maye and Josh Allen, but right there with Drake Maye. I don't think there's any reason to not like him as much as Drake Maye. I did have him as my QB1. I hated Drake Maye as a prospect, which was the ultimate. I couldn't lose. I was either going to be right about him as a prospect or I'd take what I love being wrong about him.
Okay, this is actually good though. Okay, so do you think there's a possibility we see a CJ Stroud like regression with Drake Maye because of the difference in schedule we're going to see from Drake Maye and the Patriots this year compared to last year?
Anything is possible, but I don't think so. I do think that Drake Maye I think he was severely compromised in the playoff run. There was a play where he got tackled out of bounds in the playoff game, and Vrabel grabbed him and said, "Are you going to continue?" or something like that. He said something like that. I was like, when would they ask him that unless he was hurt? Like, you don't ask that to a healthy quarterback who's like got tackled. Are you gonna be able to make it through? That's not a fucking real question in the NFL, right? You know what I mean?
Going to continue? This is a boxing match, yeah.
Right? That's not a question that a head coach asks the quarterback unless he's hurt. So I know he was hurt. They said they sort of admitted it. It's always that thing that, and then why wasn't he on the injury report? So then they're not going to come out and say it. A bunch of stuff. I get he was not right down the stretch. It's clear. Now he didn't play well, but I just think he was so good, so efficient. The deep ball is so good with players who aren't even that good. Like he was elevating other players. So no, I don't see that. He also has wheels. He's able to convert, rushing the football, which also helps him. I just think he's a really awesome player. I love them both. I love all three of these guys. I do agree with you that Jayden, while that first year was very tantalizing, it just, God, I mean, in the same uniform, it just made me feel like RG3 all over again, where I'm just like, oh my God, please don't do this. Like, I hate watching players get hurt, no matter if they're my least favorite team. But with this kid, I was like, oh my God. But I did worry about that. The slight frame. He also plays a little reckless. It's one thing to see Jackson Dart with his beefy ass legs going into contact, but when you see Jayden Daniels playing reckless, you're like, dude, you got to get your ass down. I mean, that's the one thing with Lamar Jackson is like he does a good job of that, and he still gets nicked up to the point where like toward the end of the season, he's not. He was obviously Lamar was compromised big time down the stretch. I mean, he couldn't run away from linebackers and stuff. I was like, dude, that's not Lamar Jackson. So I think when you have these guys like Jayden Daniels and Lamar is a little bit different for sure, but where a lot of their success comes from the fact that they can, use their body in a way that's like, oh my God, it's an unfair advantage to escape, 3rd and 8 and the play doesn't work, but I still can just push the edge and make a play on the run. Only a few people can do that on the planet, right? And so, yeah, Jayden, if he loses that, I think he does lose a little bit of his superpower where, a guy like even Caleb, he does improvise, but it's not on sheer like athleticism. It's like he's pretty athletic, but he's got a guile to him, man. He is amazing. Like the throw in the end zone, like that was fucking crazy. Yeah. Like it's nuts, So he seems to come up with things like that all the time. There's some things that he could clean up, but that's the thing is if he does clean that up, the exceptionalism he plays with is at another level above these two guys, whereas the efficiency these other guys play at is better than Caleb. But I feel like he could infuse some efficiency as he goes, whereas you can't play to the excellence that Caleb has. So I'll let you win the argument, and you can just have Caleb, and we'll continue to be the lovable underdogs here in Boston.
Yeah, I mean, underdogs. I don't know about underdogs either. I mean, they made a Super Bowl, so I don't know about underdogs, but.
I'm trying over here.
No, for sure. I think, the thing is, the cool thing is, I think, like, those two guys are going to be the face of the league. Like, they're next up, right? So, like, NFC.
That'd be a great Super Bowl.
It would be fun. And I think that's the cool part about it is, like, you have two, like, you can debate it till the cows come home, but, like, you have two, like, for the next decade, like, appreciate the greatness type players,
yes.
Which is awesome. So I'm thinking they both take steps forward. I hope AJ Brown is similar to 2 years ago AJ Brown, and that would really help Drake Maye. But yeah, you're right about Caleb. I think really it's just I've said it too, and Matt Waldman and I talked about it a lot. So it's like he's got to be just appreciate the mundane, right? Just like take the check downs more. Yeah. You don't have to put the cape on all the time.
Yep.
That's kind of the next step developmentally, but I think he's highly regarded in NFL circles too, of like, this is one of the better players in the league. And
hopefully Ben Johnson will give him some more easy button throws with Luther Burden, who, profiles as a guy who you can throw 2 yards and still gain 10,
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the next step too, is like, kind of looking at how you can create extensions of the run game, if that makes sense. Like, it was easier to do that in Detroit because you had like a top 2-3 back in Jahmyr Gibbs, where it's like, like he can do a lot of the screen game stuff, do a lot of the, jet motion type stuff, a lot of the fun little gadgety ways to get, to extend the run game. Obviously, DeAndre Swift's become a decent player in this stage of his career, but I think adding more to like the Deebo Samuel type stuff to Luther Burden's game, because when he was at Missouri, that was some of the stuff you saw with him of like he can be a legitimate, 50 carry a year ball carrier and do really well on the efficiency of those touches. You include the ball carrier stuff in the screen game too. So Like
Yeah,
that's a big
that's right.
one for sure to make it easier on the quarterback and just kind of
Well,
dummy proof your way to some first down.
you saw a lot of that when they would script out early, right? So some of the things that,
Yeah,
Caleb would have a harder time with was once they were off script later in the game, he would sort of, you could see the wires crossing and he'd be like, ah, shit, and just make a terrible throw. But for the most part, his terrible throws were just sailed. He
right,
wasn't throwing a lot of turnover worthy throws. Like he did not have a lot of turnovers. So for all of the negatives of Caleb, he has not been a turnover machine
right.
really ever, which is also to his credit. So I think I'm not sure where I'm going to have them, but they could even be my Super Bowl favorite heading in is Chicago. I'm really high
Interesting.
on Chicago. I love everything about them. I love everything that you're saying. I mean, I'm no Chicago fan. I'm just telling you the way I see it. Like certainly for fantasy, I'm all in, and I just have to determine whether or not they're that good a team. But I think if Ben Johnson can have Luther Burden on the field, you know, Matt Waldman's wide receiver one in that class, which is not looking as dumb as it did, middle of last year. It's starting to come. That's why I put it, Burden versus Egbuka. We were talking about Burden versus Egbuka in that class, and I was like, Egbuka felt safer, but Burden felt like he had a higher ceiling.
Yeah,
And here we are, and it's starting to
athletically,
come to
yeah. I
fruition.
mean, Burden is super. He's very similar to Malik Neighbors. Like
Yes.
there's distinct similarities between those two guys. I don't think the gap between a healthy Malik Neighbors and Burden is that much, if existent. Like they're just such similar players stylistically and how they're built and their explosiveness, and that's a big part of it, right? Obviously, I think Burden came with a little bit more baggage from a character standpoint. That's what kind of pushed him down. It wasn't the talent. That's why it was. It's not. That's not why it wasn't a first round pick. It was the character stuff and came with some baggage there. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think Burden could blow up and be one of the better receivers in the league. But yeah, it's a fun debate too with the Egbuka too, and see how that shakes out. The Egbuka, it's going to be the injuries that get him, if anything
Yeah.
does. But yeah,
Did you think you were going to come undrafted for your first maiden voyage, and it was just going to be a Chicago Bears love fest? I mean,
I,
you're
I,
welcome.
I didn't, and I'm like, I'll be honest, like I gotta take it in a little bit too, because
Yeah, take it in.
at this time last year it was like, oh my gosh, is Ben Johnson gonna, and now it's like, oh my gosh, Caleb Williams, Ben Johnson, we're here, we've
You've
arrived.
got it. This is
And
what you want. Coaching quarterback. You've
oh,
got it.
that's it. That's all I've wanted for my whole entire existence,
Right.
actually,
Yeah,
and
right.
I finally got it.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a treat that I'm gonna hang on to for sure.
Well, it's been a treat to have you here on Undrafted. Thanks for taking so much time. I know it was late,
No, I appreciate you.
late in Chicago. So thank you so much for staying up late with us. Yeah, man, just a really, really great conversation. Can't wait to have you on again. And I can't wait to tell the people to go to Angelo
Angel
Analytics.com
analysis.
and
There you go.
AngeloAnalysis.com.
Yep.
And then Angelo_fantasy on Twitter, where you'll find it. So just go to Angelo_fantasy on Twitter. You find everything there. Thank you so much. And on behalf of everybody here at the Undrafted, on behalf of everybody here at OTC, on behalf of the greatest podcast producer to ever walk the land, the owner of a freshly minted Jaylen Brown, Mr. Michael P. for Philadelphia, Duncan, you have been joined by the great Brandon Angelo. I am Jax Falcone, and we are out.